Greetings and salutations, everyone. This is Jason Bitbender Brink with a whole bunch of people from the Mirandus team. And McCarthy has a very blurry mug. There we go. That's better. And we have a bunch of really, really awesome people. So there's McCarthy's mug, Eric, Jason, Mike, and Mike. 2 mics. How's everyone doing today? Oh, now there's an incredibly blurry McCarthy. Awesome. You broke it, McCarthy.
No. You know what? It's because I turned on that stupid fancy thing. Hold on, I'm going to disable my effects.
You're still probably going to be out of focus. Anyway, we're there you go. No, hold it there. No, hold it. Go back. Hold still. There you go. Now take it away. Take it away. No. Oh, you're doomed. You broke it permanently.
It was such a nice camera too. What if I could?
No, you have to get your face like 3 inches away. You're going to have to do the entire meeting from right there. Okay, now back up slowly. There we go. There we go. All better. Okay, guys. Technical difficulties. This is going to be like I don't know exactly what the percentages are here, but there's going to be a certain percentage of this that is going through questions that people have submitted via a form, a certain percentage that is going to be the team going through awesome updates, and then a certain percentage that is going to be taking questions, I'm guessing, in the Mirandus discussion channel in our Discord at galagames.chat. What order would you like to do this in, Mr. McCarthy, sir?
Well, I would say, why don't we do kind of some updates and progress from Q1 first? Then we can answer questions that you guys compiled and submitted, and then we can just do it, just more free-formy stuff. Does that sound good?
Perfect. Let's do it.
Also, to all my Mirandus homies out there, we're going to try to bring and let you guys see and speak to more of the development team, which is always kind of nice. People that were at Galaverse got a chance to hang out with us in the Mirandus Tavern, which was pretty cool. But, anytime we do these every quarter, guys, at least we'll always make sure there's people. And while you only see a few here on the screen, there are even more in the background. Speak background people that were not no camera people. Who do we got in the background today?
Make like ghost noises.
That would be me, Craig Matchett.
We have Craig Matchett.
You can.
Oh yeah, you didn't get a camera, did you? And you're special. Craig Matchett, guys, is one of our senior technical artists on the team. He's in the background. Roy, you're back there too, right?
Hello. I'm hiding.
Roy is
I am
audio
under your bed.
engineer on it. Mike Raznick is an audio director at Gala. He's new. So we have 2 audio guys working on the game. That's kind of a cool Q1 update. It's is Mirandus like McCarthy bingo live here, Brink? I mean, do we got bingo going?
I'm sure that somebody has bingo going. There's always somebody who has bingo going.
Anyway,
okay, I'll be in the Mirandus discussion. Anyone have the bingo sheet ready?
Pujap's like, bless you, background team members. Yeah, so audio, guys, is really important to the game, and there's kind of 2 ways you can go about that from a development perspective. You can kind of wedge it in at the end, but it always is way better when you include an audio director early to help kind of shape it and help craft audio in the same way that we're crafting the design and the visuals and the engineering. How the sausage is made. Did we check that one off? I'm checking the bingo sheet. It's the best.
We just did. Somebody just posted it.
Yes. All right. We have Jason Hughes on camera. He is the technical lead of Mirandus. We have Eric Touvet, who is one of our senior and lead engineers. We have Mike Ha, who is a lead animator on the project and can talk to you about animation-y stuff. But I thought it'd be cool to have more people here, and you guys can kind of get to hear from more of the team, and we can share some of those things. Is that cool with people? Thumbs uppies? All right. Where should we start? You know where we should start? One of our big things in Q1, guys, is the physical movement of the avatar in the world. Jason, talk about what that was like to write.
Yeah, so we did a decent job of putting together some of the player movement for Galaverse, if you guys check that out. But we realized that there were a bunch of little things that we wanted to fix, and there were some features that we didn't have yet. So what we did is in Q1, we went back and kind of looked at what we had and realized all the little parts and pieces that needed to be there. For example, like everybody loves to billy goat up walls that you're not supposed to be able to get up, and we're not going to tolerate that. So we're going to make it harder for you.
While Jason talks, can you share this is in Unity, guys, and you can kind of see it. It's kind of fun to see.
Yeah. One of the great things
Are you
is
getting ready to break everything? There's
We're-
this Paul configured for this.
yes, please.
Okay, looks like we're good. Continue.
Nice.
Welcome to the gym.
Yeah, so this is the McCarthy built this. This is McCarthy. He did it in all like an hour. He put together the whole movement gym, and yeah, it was kind of awesome because it was like, all right, we need a place that we can test everything, and we need to be able to show the metrics for, and don't fall off the back because there's no collider. But yeah, like here's a ledge, and you can walk around on the ledge and see how much of the space supports you, and what happens when you go too close to the edge. Oh, hey, you fall off, right? So we can now dial in exactly how much of a ledge we need in different parts of the world. And then we're like, okay, we need to have climbing angles that prevent you from going up some areas, but allow you to go up others. And when you go to a red area in this particular configuration, that's a 50-degree slope, right? So when you get to a 50-degree slope, you can't climb up anymore. Then you're not allowed to jump, because most games let you billy goat up by climbing a little bit and jumping a little bit, and you try and get up, and now you slide back down. So the whole game is going to know if we put these kind of walls up or we put these kind of slopes up, you're not going to be able to climb over these areas. Of course, I mean, you guys are gamers. You're going to find a way. That's the point, right? Give you a chance. But we're going to try and contain you, so you don't fall off like you did off the castle from the Galaverse demo. We want to make sure that you stay inside the world and do our best to keep you in the right spots. But we needed to figure out how far should a jump go, how high can you get with a jump, and then we actually tuned that a little bit further. Once we started playing some games that had great jump feel, we were like, well, how do we get great jump feel? Because in a first-person game, sometimes there's places where you want to be able to jump. And being able to do like a jumping puzzle, we've got these boxes that are spaced out just the right way. And what we realize is that, a lot of games, they give you more explicit control over the jump. And so when you hold down the jump key, you can actually hold it longer and jump higher. And when you let go, you come down a little bit faster. So we change the gravity just a little bit. And what that does is it makes it feel better, and you can stick the landing where you want it, right? So as you start playing around with it, you start feeling that this is more like, it's got the good controls from a jumping game, right? A typical platformer gives you that kind of control. First-person shooters, a lot of times they don't, because it's not a big part of the game. But if we're going to give it to you, we're going to give you everything. So we started adding all the cool features in, and started trying to figure out, like, how much space do we need to give you between trees? How big are the doorways? How much space do we need to give you if you're a halfling versus an elf or something like that? So we were just blocking it all out to see what happens. And this is kind of where we ended up.
One of the most fascinating ones is just like holes.
Yeah, this was a tricky one, because it was like, so it's great when you're running over a bunch of holes, but what holes are you allowed to jump over, or which ones are you allowed to run over, and what should it feel like when you go over them? And so we had to tune and tweak this quite a bit to get to a point where it felt like, yeah, you can kind of make it. It's like moguls in motocross, right? You hit the first two pretty well, and then you fall through the middle, and there you are, right? So you can kind of get a sense for what we were up to. Hey, McCarthy, you want to run the other direction, or are you going to check out the trees? So we've actually got a couple of new features that weren't in there before. We added knockbacks, and in order to handle knockbacks correctly, that's the strongest one right there. These little bumpers will throw you back like you just got hit by a massive troll, for example. Not that a massive troll would knock you back, maybe. But as you go down the list, there's weaker and weaker ones, so that maybe a guy with a little puny knockback could knock you back a little bit. But when you're being knocked back, at least the way we have it right now, you can't do anything, and that's the whole point. We need to put that into the player controller so that you're actually kind of in an incapacitated state while you're being flung backwards. And then we had to add some guys running around the track so you could see how fast they move and how fast should you move.
This is very interesting. I thought, Jace. I was glad this made it in the gym. It's kind of cool.
Oh, the separation forces, yeah. So one of the things that's really kind of tricky about an MMO, especially when you have hundreds of players, is that you don't want people to be actually colliding with you, but you want them to feel solid. And one of the difficult things for an MMO to do that is that you don't want to let players be able to just kind of like completely body block you out of a doorway of a bank so you can't get your money out or something. Similarly, that just makes it unfair for players to kind of like control the space, but you do want them to feel like they have some solidity to them. So what we do is we have this thing called a separation force, and based on how fast you're moving, the force affects you more or less. So as you're kind of like, if you're in combat mode or if you're slow walk mode, it feels really solid, and things feel like they have real collision on them, and it kind of shoves you away. But whenever you're moving really fast, you can kind of just jot right through them. It gives you a little shove, but not too much. But it's kind of nice to get a feel for like, what's a big monster feel like when we have separation forces, and what does a small character feel like, and what about other things that should shove you away that aren't maybe characters but are just things in the world. But these are all the things that we have to be able to build and then plan for. And when we get a little bit further along, you'll start seeing these things show up in the game.
I want something that knocks you off cliffs and makes you die.
I can't guarantee that won't happen.
Yeah, anyway, guys, this is just, you don't, it's not just for how does it feel to move around. It's also for giving very kind of discrete directions to the environment team. So the environment team now knows, okay, I can build this. I need to ensure that a walkway is always this wide. If there's going to be a hole, if I want to ensure someone's going to fall through versus just skip over it, these are the distances that I would need to build in. If there's a jump and you want to make sure that players can make it, you know what you need to do. So we're trying to, and I've talked about this a little bit before, but we're trying to make the world feel kind of fun and physical to move around in. Combat's the same way, but this is a big part of it. So you have to set all this up, make sure that it's right, and then all of the back end had to be built to support this and be tunable. So it was a lot of stuff. That was pretty beefy.
Yeah, it was a decent amount of work, and we learned some things with the original test back in December, and when we started seeing the things that went right and when things that went wrong, we started realizing, okay, we got to really make this as bulletproof as possible. And the engineering feat is non-trivial. Let me trust me when I say that. It's pretty challenging to get right.
This is one we're continuing to work on back here, guys. One of the things that we are endeavoring to do is have you be able to shoot arrows. And I've talked about that. Like the next play test we have at Galaverse, we're going to try to let you shoot an arrow, and a gun range, a shooting range, I think is what one of our people talked about. And that's really what it is. You can kind of loose an arrow and try to hit a goblin or a moving target. And if you do that, there'll be an award of Materium for helping us test that. But in a game where death has such big penalties, we want the environment to be very, very clear for you guys. We want you to know what cover is, when you're safe or not. Some games when you walk around, just so many kind of bushes and things in your face, and you can't tell, can I shoot through this? Can somebody see me through this? Well, we don't really want that visual language because there's just too much at stake. So you set up environments like this to check out, to see how it feels to, hide behind something. Does 0.5 feel like you should be able to hide behind it? Or do you need a full meter? If there's a boulder, how big should that boulder be so that all of the different exemplar types feel like they're hiding behind it? Like this, does this feel like an arrow shouldn't hit me? Kind of interesting. Oh, anyway, I hope that was kind of cool to see. It was a good bit of work, and it's starting to feel kind of good when you run around. Yeah. Back to camera. Craig, I've worked with Craig for many years, worked at Troika Games together. Another thing that we had to dig into last quarter, guys, was your inventory. And I think I've shared in announcements before, you know, what the inventory slots we are targeting is, but all of that kind of feeds into a larger, more difficult system of what can I equip, and if I equip it, do I see it, and what happens to the character when something is equipped. And I think Craig can speak to that. It's really kind of fun and neat to see. So can we share Craig's screen?
All right, so
And you'll have to
as
zoom
Michael
in, I
said-
think, Craig, a bit for.
Oh, yeah, it's showing up pretty small in the middle camera. I'll zoom way in on these guys. Is that showing up a little bit better? Okay, so one of the interesting challenges of the MMO with on the character pipeline side is gear sets and avatar parts. All the things that the character is equipping that you can see on them, such as glove, boots, what they're wearing on their chests or pants. But what we have here is some original concept models for the characters and various skeletons. And so the challenge is to get a gear piece to fit all the different skeletons, from halfling to orc to dwarf to human. We want this human armor to be able to be worn by the halfling. And it's the same for the female models down here. So
Why?
Why would you want them?
Why would you want one to make one set of armor and have it work on all of them?
Well, you could be a dwarf and pick up the same item as a human, right?
Mostly I was thinking like we're trying to make a game, and the production, one of the things that we're trying to do, guys, is be really smart about how we produce this stuff. Instead of making discrete pieces of armor for everything, you know, you can make armor and such that if you do it right, you can use that on all the different characters. So you only have to make one kind of armor, right, Greg?
Right. So here it's illustrated. I would take those 10 skeletons, and in these gray figures is their base core shape, and is what I'm reducing it to. And that's a piece of geometry that I use in a program called Maya as like a base. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the gear and wrapping it to that base and then morphing it to different shapes. So all we're really doing is modeling the human male and human female, but we're able to morph that into an orc shape, an elf, a dwarf, and a halfling. And that's like the core principle of our part system, is that after that, our exporter can shoot out all those different parts for all those different skeletons. And this is what it would look like when they're shaped, all the different skeletons with all the initial gear sets that we've concepted out.
And what this means for everybody is that we can make, you know, we can make gear faster. We can present you with more options. Instead of having to handcraft each one for all the different body types, it just kind of blows up the production. It means we need a much larger team. It gets harder to make new content. So we want, you know, we want to have the freedom to get you guys something new and cool and have it work, that kind of stuff.
And that same piece of armor will look the same on every skeleton. Here's kind of a breakdown of the individual parts. We have a character not wearing anything, but they're chopped up into the different regions of what the equipable parts will be slotted on later.
Do you have that inventory image too? I mean, in case people missed it. Yeah, I mean, I think we put this in announcements, guys, but we're targeting you being able to equip a lot, and we want those things to be seen. So you'll have a really cool, complex kind of like tool belt and backpack and have a bunch of cool stuff. Makes characters look neater in the environment, we think, and you'll be able to tell a powerful high-level adventurer when they walk into the tavern. They'll have a lot of cool stuff on them.
Right. And then this part here is just kind of like our internal naming and how we keep all the parts organized. Every part needs like a naming convention that is logical and we can all decipher. And over here are some head customization stuff, which is still kind of in progress. But what we're showing is hair, eyebrows, eyes, nose, facial hair, all elements of the head that can be customized or swapped out for different meshes.
Yeah, helmets are a big pain in the butt when you're making a game, guys, because it's like you have hair and then you put a helmet on. Sometimes it's just a tall helmet, right? And then it's like you have to cap the top of the head and just remove the top of the head and then have the hat there. Sometimes the hat covers more of the face and more needs to be hidden. So every time we have hair or anything in the game, it has to be chopped up into different pieces and hidden or unhidden based on what it is you're wearing.
Yeah, so this
Why
is
don't we just? Oh, Craig, I was
this
just going to say, why don't we just do actual like cloth sim for the hair? Wouldn't that be cool?
I like the way you're thinking, Jace. All right.
That would be
yeah,
cool.
essentially you're seeing visibility states for different sections, like Mike was saying. Depending on what type of headgear you're wearing, the hair would have to be toggled to not draw when that type of headgear was being worn.
But Jason, I heard we don't have to do it that way anymore. So that's awesome, dude.
Animation
Nice.
agrees. We should do it that way.
There's some notes on the Material workflow that is still to be decided on how we're going to actually color and material these characters, but it was just an earlier concept was that we were just going to use swatches, and this is like a very optimized way of drawing the characters. Very simple, very reductive style.
Yeah, so the thing here, guys, and it is a lot of work, is just determining naming conventions for everything, what hides when you wear what, and to have that kind of flow and logic built is foundational work that we need to do to make sure that we can go broad with armor sets and such. And here, let me drop this in Mirandus announcements. You're seeing the old character type in Craig's thing. You don't need to share that anymore, Paul.
Good.
Was there anything else, Craig, on there? Or
No,
was that...
I think we're good. The rest of it kind of goes deeper into edge cases on parts that maybe we don't need to go into.
But one of the things that's been really important to us, and Craig touched on in the materials, is how quick we can get assets into the game. So we still want a reductive style where we're not spending 3 months to try to make something that we would want to get to you guys much faster. So we're still targeting a reductive style, but as we started to put the boxy characters into the world, they were looking very strange. We couldn't keep the visual language as solid when that boxy character was standing next to a plant or a tree. It was falling apart a little bit on small animals and kind of detailed objects that we would want in the environment. It just wasn't feeling cohesive. So we kind of spent some cycles there locking what is, we think, maybe a superior style, still reductive, but stylized. And it's kind of cool. I have an image. Let me drop this. I'll drop this in announcements, so I guess everyone can see it there. But this is an elf, and this is kind of the in-game model here, guys. So you'll be seeing the characters look a little bit more like this. Does everyone see that in announcements? Yeah, so they're going to have more shape to them, but there's a visual language in there that you'll see kind of mirrored throughout the world and on trees and on characters. But we think it goes a little bit deeper and opens up some doors to give you guys additional layers of customization and make you feel really cool. And that's how I like to feel when I'm making my avatar. It's like he's got to be the coolest person in the universe, right? So if you guys looks like you guys are pretty cool with that. Many responses. That's cool. Awesome. And we've got, there's other stuff coming too, guys. I mean, we've got human versions of it and all the other ones too. We just haven't gotten a nice render of it like this, but I'll share those as they come in throughout the quarter. Just drop stuff in here. But the game, we talked about it last year, guys, like how bad things look when you start. And there's just this constant reevaluation of it. And then you kind of get pieces in the game. Like we had this, everything was very boxy before, and it really worked when they're standing next to a building. But you start getting the pieces in and they don't quite fit just right. And there's, you just continually massage it until it really starts to get there. And I feel like we're having that visual cohesion now. So at the next playtest, guys, you'll see we're probably going to have the human in there with a bow, and then you'll be shooting a goblin, and hopefully everything will look far more tied together for you. But glad you guys dig that. And Tony's not here. Tony's our art director, and he would really love to see all your guys' reactions, but it's a bummer he's out of town. So when he gets back, that'll mean a lot to him if you guys dig it. He's been spending a lot of time with the rest of the team trying to get this right. So that was a big one. That was a big one. And the reason it's a big one, guys, is, you have to know what everything looks like, again, to go broad. If you don't have a set of everything that you can hold in your hands, it's hard to make 1,000 more of them. So getting to that and getting it right was probably pretty critical. And that was good work in Q1, I think. What was another thing we did in Q1 that we want to talk about? Mike, you want to share some animation-y stuff?
I sure can. How do I do that though?
Well, I got some. I mean, I could just drop more kind of videos in there.
Sure, go for it. So yeah, some of the stuff that McCarthy is going to be dropping to you guys right now, we've mostly been trying to figure out a style for the first person and the third person. One thing that makes the first person game more challenging is that when you make a third person game, you really only need to lock down the third person animations. But when you have a first person game, you need all the third person animations because you still have to be able to see your friends, your opponents, whatnot. But at the same time, you also need the first person animations on top of that. So that is definitely a challenge that we're trying to tackle the best way we can. I've shown some examples of the third person style that we're going for. You guys will see some of the more first person stuff this time around with the leaks. I have some other stuff that I can show as well, but maybe we'll have time for that later. One of the bigger challenges of animation is not the art part, but making sure that the animation that we are what we want to show is what we're actually seeing in game. So there's many things that go into complicating that issue. Sometimes it's the engine, sometimes it's the different software that people are using. Sometimes there's differences in computers that people are using. Many things can complicate that, and some of the things that we still have to develop that to achieve the true one-to-one feel, so that the amazing animators that we have can actually provide all the firepower that they possess, is we need accurate camera movement in first person. We need FOV control in first person. We need the weapons and everything to be exact. We need the weapons animated. So it's a pretty complicated process. I know it sounds simple, like, oh, why, first person game,
Mike,
everybody makes that.
You didn't make it sound simple right there.
Oh, really? Okay.
It is complex, and you made it sound
yeah,
that
it's
way.
pretty. Okay, yeah, it's pretty complex. Sorry, guys, if I did not make that sound clear. But I'm assuming they have seen the videos now.
Yeah, those are there for you guys to download and announcements. They're kind of neat to see.
Okay.
And I would say, Mike, and I think you probably agree, it's the same exercise as the art style. You work hard to get stuff in fast. You learn lessons from that and feedback from playing it, and then you know where to take it next. And so we've gotten some good first stabs at it, and you'll just see that getting better and better and better over the course of the year. Mike and Eric, can you guys talk about motion matching a little bit? I think that was a massive technical exploration of this quarter, like to see if we wanted to do this or not. We were pretty excited about it, and it looks like it's working out okay.
Eric, I'll let you take the lead on this.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so motion matching is a different way of playing animations. It's a pretty cool process where it's kind of a newer tech. It's been out for, I guess, like 3 or 4 years. Commercially, it's been in several games, I guess, by now. But what the idea is that a traditional animation system, especially like with Unity, you have all these different animations, and you have to piece together exactly what animation to play and when. You basically end up with a huge state machine, depending on how complex your animation needs are. And what that means, for example, if you want to go from a run to a stop, and then you want to jump, you basically have to hand tune all those transitions. You have to set the timings for them. You have to make sure that each individual state doesn't get kind of in a locked up place. There's just a lot of logic that everybody has to hand tune. It's to be honest, it's arcane, but it's been that way for 20, 30 years.
That's just how you do it, Eric.
Have been done. So some pretty smart people a while back figured out that now that computers are more powerful, now that we have so much content, it's just too much work to put all that crap together yourself, and to have a whole team, babysitting state machines, and making sure all that stuff works. So motion matching is a way for the program to actually do a lot of work for you. So, for example, you provided a bunch of animations, and you essentially give it some hints, and the system basically tries its darndest to make everything look as smooth as possible. And essentially what you do is as your character is moving around, you tell it effectively how your character is moving, what your velocity is, if you're thinking about jumping, if you're going to fall, all these little things, you give it hints. And what it does, which is pretty cool, is it basically it looks through all of its library of animations and picks what works best and what looks best depending on what you're trying to do. And it's really good about jumping around and solving that problem for us. So the end result is you end up with characters as they move around looking more natural. Blending looks more natural, and it's just a lot less work as far as a gameplay programmer having to go in and saying, hey, I want to add this particular feature, and now I'm going to do a particular action, and please just make it work for us. So that's what it's all about. It uses some pretty cool mode. We have lots of motion capture stuff that we're plugging in and all that. So anyway, that's fairly technical, I guess. I don't know what the audience is here, but I think it's pretty badass stuff. And we're going to be hopefully having our enemy goblin here that everybody gets to play with, basically using that tech and seeing how that plays in our system. So.
And
yeah,
some
it just
of you
makes
guys
things really smooth, guys. One of the goals of the game is to make you feel like you're there. And like Eric said, I just feel like animation just hasn't been great in forever. I lose my sense when I'm looking at a world when something starts walking like it has a broomstick up its butt and you're just like twirling around on a stick. It's just bizarre. I want to see feet kind of plant. I want to see things move around in a way that convinces me it's standing there. So this was kind of phase one of that. Try to get something moving around the environment smoothly with motion matching. It's pretty slick stuff. And then, we'll be able to go deeper this year on getting AI in there. These are just going to be dummy targets that you guys will be shooting at the next Galaverse. Again, we need to test, like, you know, casting a projectile into the world, it connecting with something, and then adjusting its stats on the server based on a valid game action. Did I butcher that, Jason, or is that?
That's about right. We're just now starting to implement some of the important critical parts of the client to server and back again. So we're not trying to make the goblins too smart. We're just going to show off. We've got some really awesome motion matching, which is that's a AAA feature. You see it in just a handful of high-end games, but it's something we think we can scale, and we think it's going to look fantastic. And it's going to really sell the enemies, make them feel real. And then the arrow at hitting a thing and then giving you some feedback, it's also pretty complicated. But in order for us to make that really feel like you're connected to the world, you need to be able to interact with it. And being able to fire an arrow and have it hit exactly where you see and have it have the reaction that you expect, it's important. And you know, one of the things we're hoping to see is that do people who were in Singapore playing with our server in North Virginia, do you have a good experience too, right? You have enormous amount of lag depending on where you live. So we need to be able to make this feel right. And if we can check that box, then we're going to move forward after that and feel like we can confidently supply the rest of the gameplay moving forward.
And one thing, this is actually how Jason sold motion matching to me. The state machine, traditional state machines can break very often.
Yeah,
So when you're playing a video game, you'll see someone's upper body just wig out, or their lower body would stop animating. And you see this everywhere, right, in online games. And with motion matching, I think we can drastically reduce those instances where the state machine breaks. So I mean, that's great.
Effectively, there is no state machine, which is pretty cool, because it basically takes a look at what's happening and solves, hey, how do I make my character fit what you're describing, instead of you having to hand code and link all that stuff together. So yeah, anyway.
There's even an additional step with what this helps play into is we want to be able to pack a ton of objects in a zone. We want to be able to have, I don't want to say how many, but a lot of new players. I'm not going on record. No, I'm not doing it.
Good job. I approve of this non-inclusion of specific.
Well, we talk about it on Discord all the time. I mean, and we, you know, and I think what people are interested in a lot, and you know, guys, I'm watching Discord here. Check me if I'm wrong on this. It's like, but size, like how big is a zone, is always a question that comes up. So there's this feedback loop, guys, about how many things can be in a world in a particular area, and then how large is that area. Is it better to have it be smaller? And you know, let's say if we have 100, 200, 300, 800 things, 750.
750 sounds good,
600. I'm gauging Jason winces. But no, you know, we want to make the world feel alive. We want you to have zones that feel large, and we want them to be populated with stuff. So the more complex we make stuff, the more we have to go into an LOD system to make sure that, you know, you're only displaying things you need to.
And it gets even worse when you start thinking about like networking. If you have 1,000 objects, you actually need to receive 1,000 updates every time you want those objects to move. So one of the really amazing things is that with this kind of more amazing system that we're using for animation that looks fantastic, we actually get to use that for a network LOD. So we get to drop off more packets the further away those objects are from you, and it doesn't matter. Whereas a state machine gets all broken because you didn't make a state transition at the right time. We don't care anymore. Instead, it's, oh yeah, this character looks like this, he's doing this thing. And if we drop a couple of packets, it's not going to impact it. It's just going to pick up where it left off, and it'll look great the whole time. So that gives us network LOD, and so we can put more things in a zone, and we can have greater density, and hopefully we won't have to have limits on how many players can go from place to place. But if we have to, we can. That's an old school fallback we want to avoid if we can. So we're building the tech in the right way so that as we move forward, we can check more boxes and say, hey, we can support these things. We want to be able to move forward. And now we have the limitations of, yeah, we can have 100 objects or 300 objects or 2,000 objects or 8,000 objects, or stop me, please. There's
Keep
going to be a
going,
limit.
Jace. Keep going.
We don't know what the limit is, and we won't know until we've done it. But
Everyone
anyway,
heard you, Jace. 100,000 objects in every zone. I'm so glad we captured that.
what have I done?
Can I go ahead and say that at no point in time does any of this mean that there will be 100,000? I hate to be like hold on, wait, where did the bingo thing go? You're not allowed to say that, I think is what I'm supposed to say. So some of you erase one of those boxes.
Well, yeah, I mean, the truth is, guys, is that no one wants a zone with 100,000 things, and it's because that just sucks. It's just too packed. So it's kind of nice. There's a bit of an elegant language that unfolds when you're developing a zone. You have the right number of people in it, and that's what's important to us to preserve. We were actually talking about starter zones a couple weeks ago. It's like you come into the game, and that first area that you'll enter up into. It's not going to be too way overpacked because we will ensure that starter zone area is spread out amongst other zones and you can kind of move around organically in between them. So it's just kind of a balancing act. It's a bit of a balancing act, but we're targeting something really fun and cool to make you feel like you're around a pretty great big group of folks, which I think will be kind of neat. No, there's not 100,000 things, Jason. Frank.
Thank you.
It's
Hughes, I guess.
when you go and say this stuff and then you disappear into your Slack, I'm still the one in Discord who has to deal with this shit. I'm the one who gets tagged on Twitter. Michael McCarthy said 100,000 things.
Jason Brink said 100,000 things, man.
Jason Brink did not. He didn't.
Anyway,
continue. Carry on.
More stuff. Like 100,000 more things.
I would like to say that it really looks like I matched my shirt to this background, by the way. It's really, it's a really nice color match.
Oh, it's true, huh? Yeah.
I mean, it even has leaves and stuff on it.
It does. It's fantastic.
Yeah, so I'd like to chat with you guys a little bit about the stats the game is going to have and what progression might look like. I think a lot of your questions center around this, and I think we're putting some good stakes in the ground or lines in the sand, as they say, for what it means to have a character in Mirandus. There is so much to cover here that I don't know if I can get all the way through it, but I want to talk to you guys a little bit about it because I think it's kind of cool and you'll dig it. So if we talk about progression, I kind of group all this in progression when I'm designing or thinking about it. Meaning I have a character and he just started and he's little and he's weak and you want to grow them up and make them big and awesome. And what are the vectors of those progression and what is it that I need to do in the world to move forward? So we are going to have core stats in the game. We're going to have strength, dexterity, intelligence, focus, and vitality is what we're targeting right now. And there'll be wordsmithing there, but think of them in that way. We also are going to have things like core conditions, we call them. So, obviously a health bar. You're going to have an energy bar. For those new to the project, many games have an energy bar and they just rename it 30 different things. And we're trying to just unify that system. It's part of one of our product pillars. We want to try to simplify playing an MMO. So anytime you do anything in the world, it's going to take energy. And if you want to do anything magic in the world, it is going to take Materium. So a core condition might also be, do you need to sleep? Do you need to eat? And then a meaty chunk, I think, guys, and this is a stake we're putting in the ground, is we are going to have mastery. And that is basically anytime you perform a successful action in the world, you are going to get experience points along that particular vector. It is not going to be item by item. That's just too much of a pain in the ass. But the more you use a sword and are successful with it in your environment, the more experience points that you will gain in your sword mastery or your sword skill. And that goes, you can think of it like sword, dagger, axe, staff, hammer, bow, crossbow, etc. If you're casting spells, I think what we're targeting is that mastery will be along the type of spell you're casting. So fire, electricity, acid, light, magic. And the more you perform those acts in the world successfully, the more experience points you'll get, and you'll be able to level those particular things up. Crafting is the same way, guys. Leveling up your crafting means you own a building or and have a crafting station there, or we've talked about some of the larger buildings, you being able to share that crafting station with maybe a few others, but you have to be successfully crafting to increase your skills as a baker, a bowsmith, a cheesemaker, an alchemist, a tanner, that kind of stuff. So we are going to try to target mastery and mastery for performing successful actions in the world. And that's a lot to go into and a lot to discuss, but I think that's probably something you guys have been wanting to know about and waiting for. How do I get more powerful in the game? And another big part of this, again, guys, I'm going to touch on some of this stuff, and then we're just going to have to be in Mirandus discussion to go deeper in it for months and months. But we are targeting this thing called a skills system. And when I'm thinking about this stuff and we're designing it, I'm always trying to empower you guys to own more of the content. So we've already talked about gear, right? I've collected a bunch of resources and I can forge a sword, and those resources are probably on chain. That sword is on chain. And now I have something that I can, keep inside the game, take to the secondary market. We don't know what you're going to do with it. It is yours. So we wanted to kind of develop a system by which that you guys could own what we call actions, spells, and recipes. It was always, I think, the community would know that we've always kind of chatted about recipes that you would take to your crafting stations or your buildings being NFTs, so that maybe even to be able to craft something like a magic fire sword is pretty awesome in and of itself. And you can keep and hold that recipe or trade it, do whatever you want with it. But we want spells and actions to function this way as well. So imagine that super cool spinning sword attack you have. Those might be scarce. Not many people may actually have those. And you might be able to get those as you're looting things in the world, kind of getting that kung fu scroll, if you will, that lets you perform that particular action. And that'll be gated on mastery typically. So if it's a super crazy spinning sword attack, you might need to have a mastery level of 7 or 8 in order to be able to utilize it. But it's kind of a way for us to put even I think, kind of a presentation or a PDF would probably be the best way to get it in your hands and have you guys look at it. But, our goal is to have something that's simple to play around with and let you guys kind of respec and rethink your character. It's also our goal to, again, let you guys own as much of this as you possibly can and trade it back and forth. So, yeah, let's just continue that discussion in Discord, guys, over the next few weeks. And I'll help clarify that stuff, and I'll get you some documents to help spill it out. But I think it'll be pretty cool. It'll be neat to kill a monster and get an interesting spell or a skill. I think that'll be pretty rad.
We didn't lose audio during that little intermission there, did we?
Did we?
Okay.
Anyway, for those of you that missed it, it was awesome.
It was amazing.
Mr. K is in here saying, dude, please repeat. Do we know how much we lost?
By the way,
No idea.
I already talked about animation, so if you need me to swap out with someone, you can get someone in. The names are messed up.
It'll just be
We had a little bit of a
It's just
A little bit of a
us.
body
Hey, how
swap.
you doing, bro? How you doing? Talking to you, McCarthy.
I'm fine. I'm
Thank
wondering how
you.
much people missed. 5 seconds or so. Oh, we all
I'm
missed
I'm
it?
not sure. 5 seconds. Seconds missed. Okay, well you probably. They
Offline for
probably
like
got
10
it.
seconds. That's some pretty meaty shit.
20, 30 seconds. What? It's a lot of missing time there.
Yeah, well, I'll be around, guys, too. Sorry we had that internet hiccup there. Oh, 2 minutes. No, no.
Missed the last 4 hours of this AMA.
30 seconds. That's a lot. Yeah. So, okay, guys, let me just give you the quick, I'm going to provide you some documentation. We can keep this conversation going on Discord and throughout the coming months. But we've put some stakes in the ground. We needed to know what to engineer, and we're feeling pretty good about the broad kind of system and way you progress as players. So if you missed it, don't worry about it. I'm going to try to drop a PDF in here in the coming weeks, just with some high level thoughts, and we can keep the discussion going. But the idea is that, if you're performing actions in the world, like a super spin attack or a basic sword strike, that even those you could own as NFTs and trade them with your friends. A spell would even be an NFT. It's a thing that you own. You can cast this spell, and unless you have that spell, you cannot cast it. In the same way a recipe works at a crafting station. If you don't have the recipe or the blueprint, you cannot craft that. So
I've
we're
always
trying to
liked
combine all of
that.
those systems into one and empower you guys to own stuff.
I've always liked that about Dungeons and Dragons, the concept of going and getting your spell book and putting the spell in your book, and then you can only cast that so many times before you run out of energy, and you have to take a long rest or something like that. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It'll be cool, guys. You'll dig it.
So we're going this excuse me, my brain is totally fucking casserole at this point in time.
You cuss.
I said a bad word. I'm sorry. I said a bad word. I'm seriously, it's like tater tot casserole at this point in time in my head. Are we going until the top of the hour, or do you want to take this further than that?
I'm down to hang out, guys. I think one of the things we always say AMA, and I hate it because it's like
Because it's not an AMA. You've just been talking about stuff you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, there was no AMA there yet, guys. So what I would like to do now is, and the rest of the team, you guys can hang out if you want. But I'd like to start going through some of this list. You guys submitted a lot of questions, and
holy crap! We haven't even gotten to that part yet. I thought this was all. Oh, good lord! You're gonna go for a while.
That's right, Jason. All right, pull up your big boy britches. We're gonna talk about some Mirandus, buddy. You need to go to sleep?
I've just been at my desk for so long today.
Do we
have
need to
another
get a
meeting?
beer? Do we need to go get a beer?
We need to go get. I have an entire bottle of Snoop wine. 19 Crimes Snoop wine that's waiting for me downstairs.
All right. Should Jason Brink and I go get a beer? And
well,
let's
let's do this. How about this, Paul? We have Paul is managing this in the background. Get rigged up so. Okay, hold on with the intermission slide. I'm going to have to drop off because I do have another meeting that I have to go to. I know. In my calendar it said an hour for the AMA, and we haven't gotten to any of the MA part or the
always
A
double
or yeah, no, there's no AMA part that's happened yet. So I'm going to drop off, but I will give Paul a few minutes to rig up the correct number of people so that I'm not it doesn't cause confusion when I disappear. How about that?
Sure. So we're going to intermission. We're going to reconfigure things and then answer questions. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is what we're hearing. And then I will not be here to say that he can't say that stuff. So just assume that everything that he says, he can't say and that probably shouldn't be said, and that you shouldn't listen to it. And Jesse agrees with me on this.
I'm pretty safe. I'm pretty good. Mostly.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, intermission, and then guys, I'll be right back. I mean, like 3-minute intermission.
Does that work for you, Paul?
All right. 5 minutes, guys. Then we're coming back, and we're gonna go for like another hour. if you guys are up for it.
Okay, you guys have fun with that. I'm going to go to my next thing and then
You can
die.
come back, Jace, if you
We'll
want.
see. We'll see.
All right.
They'll just make Paul's life difficult.
All right.
Peace out.
Thank you, Jason.
Are we back? Hi. Wasn't a full 5, so we can maybe just chill for a sec. Because people are counting on that 5, maybe. I shall pour
We can
myself an icy cold one, though.
We can sing
Wish I knew
songs
some
while they
sea
wait.
shanties.
Oh yeah, exactly. Same brain.
Drunken Sailor.
I recommend Sticky Hands by Block 15. For those days when, you know.
Brought to you by Monday.
All right. Maybe like 1 more minute, guys. Is that cool?
we go. Fixed.
Mr. K needs 5 more. I don't know if we can wait, man. All right, should we do it? All right, guys. Thank you for submitting. Thank you for submitting all of your questions. I think there were about 300 of them or so. And I don't know if we really had time to go through them all and collect which ones are likely the same question. So I'm gonna kind of take them off the top of the list. They're somewhat ordered here, and then yeah. So it'll be an ongoing process, guys. Someone's asking when the next playtest is. I've already talked about that. We're targeting a playtest that'll be released at the next Galaverse is what we're going for. That playtest will let you earn more Materium because we need your help testing it. And we need your help testing it by jumping in and shooting an arrow and killing a goblin. A little dummy goblin target will be walking around. That's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to do that at scale. How many people can we have in that level all firing and casting those rays at the same time, those physics objects? So that'll be really helpful if you guys could help us with that. And people that do, there'll be another Materium grant. Someone was asking how will deeds and buildings show up across different servers? And will players be able to hop in between different servers, or will they be locked into a single one? This is one of the toughest technical challenges we have on the game, but we are targeting one world. It is Mirandus, and we are all trying to be in the same world at the same time. Oh, Jason, you froze. Is that true? Is Jason really there?
I froze.
Oh, I hear
That
your
looks
voice.
awesome.
Just hold it right there. That's how many worlds we're gonna have here, guys.
One world, baby.
One world. That's and we're doing that for a bunch of reasons, guys. I mean, it just feels better just to know that you're in there with people. And I've always hated when I'm joining an MMO trying to pick a server and like trying to remember where my friends are at and which server it is. And it's nice just to jump into a world and know that you are there. That is the world, and that is the one that all of your friends are in too. So, the challenge with doing that is latency. So there's just different places you're playing in the world. I think of it like Sydney to South Africa. I thought Jason was the worst offender when I was looking at the latency chart.
What was it? Singapore to North Virginia was the worst one I saw, but I'm sure that Brisbane's pretty bad too.
Yeah, so we're just dealing with how fast we can get a signal down some fiber optics and through data centers in between you guys. And does that have an impact on the game? And I'd say it does, but it actually, for Mirandus, isn't the end of the world, because I feel like combat in this game just has to be more strategic and more tactical. This is not a Twitch game. So if things need to unfold and there's a little bit of a delay, it'll be okay, because we need to slow things down so that you guys can choose to cast that spell and use that Materium to cast it, or loose that arrow that you've crafted, making a very deliberate decision about being in cover or being out of cover, choosing to engage a monster or not. So I think Mirandus will play in a way that supports a little more latency than other games. So one world. What? Fake freeze. Are there going to be? Yeah, that one's cool. That one's cool. What else can go? Do we ensure? Okay, so here's an interesting one. Tokenomics question. Will there be a way to ensure that Materium is sustainable? Like a control of burn rates and things of that nature. this is something we talk about a lot inside the company, guys, especially on the Mirandus team. We have to be very careful about an economy that involves NFTs just in general, far more so than any other game that can just rip out different tuning here and there. But I think Materium works because Materium will be found in the world of Mirandus as you're playing, and the demand for that Materium will always exceed what it is that players are able to harvest out of the world. And the reason I believe that to be true is because I think there are players out there that will not settle for anything less than having an unbelievable amount of Materium. So, you can imagine that casting a spell is a huge deal. Big spells, very powerful spells will cost a lot of Materium. And that person somebody's out there, they're going to want to cast them, and they're going to want to cast a ton of them, because that's going to give them the power to push into deeper unseen realms of the game. It's the same thing for death. So when you die, there's a pretty, you're going to incur some significant penalties. And I think it's going to be across experience points in your mastery. And if you want to come back without any of those penalties, then, you'll need to employ Materium. If you're crafting something and you don't have all the ingredients, you can use Materium magic, to fill out some of those ingredients you don't have. So I think there's always going to be an incredible demand for Materium in the game, and it creates kind of a circular economy where we can give it out when you kill things, but the demand will be really, really high. People trying to suck it back into the game to push deeper into the world to get higher grants of Materium. So I think as long as the demand is there, everything works out pretty well. But to say that we're going to model this stuff to death in Excel sheets for days is an understatement. We will do everything we can to get it right, and learn from all the lessons that we've seen in the space. Checking it out here. So many. Oh my gosh. So will Materium be on loot drops only, or will it be discoverable? Materium, we like the idea that Materium can be in loot drops when you kill a monster, or they can just be hidden in places around the world. I'm really hot on having a lot of secrets in the game, maybe things that could only be found at certain times and dates and locations. I think that'd be kind of fun. So will there be wagons that can be pulled by horses for bulk transport? We had a lot of discussion about horses a couple weeks ago, and I think I ran it by some of you guys here in Mirandus discussion. Let me just start by saying I think everyone is okay with horses dying. Like, they have hit points and they can be killed. And here's kind of, and I'm going to wind my way to that question about kind of a pack mule kind of animal. Because I don't know if we have the answer to that exactly, but we liked the idea that your stables and your hitching posts are the safe place to leave your horse. If you leave your horse out in the wild and just dismount, they're essentially vulnerable to monsters that are out in the wild. And if you leave it there, it's not necessarily safe. But if you take it to a hitching post or a stable, that is a place to park it where you can guarantee it will, it'll be there. So we love the idea of saddle bags. A horse not only is a bit of a motorcycle to get you faster around the world, but that there could be saddle bags and things of that nature to hold more when your inventory starts to get full. And for those new to Mirandus, guys, we do have a carry weight as a thing that you'll have to manage. So if you put too much in your pack, you will suffer an encumbrance, and that will force you to walk, we are thinking currently. So we like the idea of saddlebags and a way for you to like load stuff out of your inventory, into a pack animal or a horse. But we don't have a good answer yet to, all right, so let's say, 50 things are in my horse. These are NFTs, guys, right? Like you own this stuff. And then something kills my horse. What happens? And what we can say is that, oh, they just sit there on the ground and you can come get them later. But you can imagine that world, right? Where everyone just leaves them sitting there until later. Make it get kind of messy. So we don't have good answers to what happens to your NFTs that are in your saddlebags. We need to answer that. But we kind of like the idea of a horse being able to be killed and stables and hitching posts and stuff being the safe place to drop them off. More questions here. Will an exemplar have some kind of progression? Meaning, will they get better over time if they perform a job frequently? We talked about that tonight. We will have mastery. There was one thing that I don't think I touched on that we're playing with right now, and I like to run this stuff by you guys and get your feedback on it. But I kind of like the idea of even making class an NFT. What if you guys could own that you could even be certain classes, and there'd be many of the basic ones, but what if there could be rare drops? If you kill the lava king, there could be a rare drop of the archer of fire or something. So not only are you an archer imbued with all these other kind of powers, you get additional fire damage when you're out there. Or so kind of make even your class, put that in your guys' hands, let you own it, and kind of give you a fun way to experiment with other classes. It's always kind of tricky in games, but I think that's maybe kind of an interesting way to do it. We would have to ensure there's a time penalty there, or maybe a building or somewhere you'd have to go to announce that you are switching class. It couldn't be on the fly. That wouldn't work. But, if there was a way that you wanted to switch classes and classes could be collected and traded by you guys, I think that'd be really neat. Let's see. I'm looking at yours, Captain Nero. Here, you have a question. So you asked about the next play test. Will it be in a new place or a different zone? We are sequestering everybody in one kind of sub zone for the next play test. It's going to be like 350 meters by 350 meters. It's just going to be like a field. Again, we're trying to test something like number of players, number of cast arrows, and is damage working properly when an arrow connects. So we want to kind of sequester everyone in this field. But what you'll see in that field is far more indicative of the graphics in the final game. We've got some cool stuff happening with grass, the look of the trees. So it should be really pretty. Actually, here, while I'm sitting here, let me just drop another Leakums here in the announcements. Imagine something like this, guys, in announcements. Kind of a field surrounded by a tree line, mountains in the background. This was kind of a mood piece that Tony did that I think is really kind of cool. There'll be some time of day in there. Let me see that there's like another. Sometimes we just rip out like little quick concepts, guys, to kind of get a feel for what it might be like. Here's one. Tony will be mad at me that I shared this one. This is like a very quick concept sketch, but it's like you would approach a tree line and could there be something interesting in there, So again, in the next playtest, we're not going to have AI. There's 2 steps to AI, guys, and Eric's still on the line. He could probably speak to this. But, the first thing you need to do, and again, Eric and Jason, tell me if I'm butchering this to death, but you need to stand up a way for the servers to communicate with the clients and send messages to even move a thing around at all. And then once you get there, you can kind of deepen the sophistication of it by saying, is it aware of you? Does it see you and know you're there? And can it make a conscious thought about, should I attack? Should I run away? And then kind of the next step is getting real sophisticated. I think internally what we say a lot is pack behavior. Pack behavior is one of the most difficult things to do. And I really want that to be super awesome. But what if there were like, 10 goblins in the forest? And in real life, if there were 10 goblins in the forest and you came up on them, what would that look like? We watch a lot of videos on like chimpanzees and stuff in the wild. They're aggressive, and they kind of hang out together. The way they look, the way they hunt together, you can see the interaction. You can see when one stops because it hears something, the others stop. Like, it goes so deep. Those simple things that you see pack animals doing are tremendously difficult to get to. So first step is have something at all that moves something around. Second step is increasing awareness of you in relationship to that object. And then the third step is sophisticated pack behavior. Eric, did I butcher that?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's also worth noting, I mean, to kind of throw this out there, the demo that we're going to have at Galaverse is going to actually have a real backend server that's actually doing all the NPC work. And that's quite a bit different than the last demo that everybody saw at Galaverse, where all the NPCs were actually running locally on people's clients in a single player game. So there's a lot of work that's gone into the server infrastructure on the back end to really bootstrap and get this game really in gear. So that's going to be one of the things we're really testing on the next playtest. So it seems like things aren't to me. It's cool that we're going to have an NPC running around that you can shoot and kill, but you guys understand that there's a lot more going on that you don't see this go around.
Yeah, in the last thing at Galaverse, guys, that's why we had 2 zones. We had the multiplayer zone because we wanted to test what we had stood up foundationally for our server tech. And then we had that single player zone where you had to run around by yourself. That was so that we could prototype stuff, keep stuff on the client, learn some lessons about scale. And, so this is like, what you're going to be experiencing here is a bit of a merge between those two. We have some really great tech stood up, and we need your help testing it. So you'll be there in multiplayer shooting arrows with your friends at dummy goblins. And then what we're hoping to get to, over the course of the year is more sophisticated AI where they're coming to attack you. And if that is feeling really awesome and their awareness is working right, then we start transitioning into getting really great pack behavior. And I'm to say that great pack behavior is important to me is an understatement. I want you walking up on them and having them look at each other, wondering what to do, waiting to see what the other, these simple things that you see in real life that make you believe something is there. So I want to get to that, and I want that to be awesome. But
so this is also probably the point at which I should tell everybody that McCarthy is a little bit crazy, just a little bit. Almost every game starts off with, we're going to make some AI, we're going to make some kind of okay combat, and then we're going to fake all the pack behavior. He wants it to work, like really work. And the problem is it's complicated, and very few games try to do that. So it's not going to just be like we snap our fingers and that happens, but we have some really good tech and we have some smart guys, and we're going to make it happen, but it's going to take a little while for it to be good. So just temper your expectations. McCarthy's going to tell you it's going to be amazing. Believe him, but it's not going to be next week. So, it's very, very difficult to do pack behavior. It's one of the things that most games try never to do. But in order to make a compelling MMO where you feel like you're at risk every minute of the day when you're wandering around trying to kill something, and maybe his buddy is back there getting ready to stab you in the back, it has to be really, really compelling, and it has to work. And it can't just be a scripted thing, because the world's going to be organic. So it's a simulation as much as it is an MMO, and that's pretty rare out there.
Yeah, it's kind of a cross between an MMO and a survival horror game in many ways. It's like it's going to be hard out there, and there's going to be evil creatures, but I think it's more exciting if you believe they're there. And if there's multiple standing near each other, what would they do? What would they say? Mike Rasnick, who's on the line, he's talking about how do we define their language? How do they
Yeah,
communicate with each
we've had a
other?
couple of interviews the last week or two with some renowned linguists, and we're looking at creating a whole language for them. So something very believable and something very compelling. And we're really looking forward to putting that together. I think it's going to be super exciting to experience the world with these animals that sound like, they have a real flushed out culture behind them. And how we do that is going to be, it's going to be interesting, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
Should be cool. Will there be a mobile game before release is one of the questions. So that's one of the things that we have talked about. We don't have any like locked plans there, guys, but there's several nice things that a mobile game before release can do for you. We could demonstrate and have, we could have consumptive use of Materium potentially. We could have a spreadsheet style game that lets us tune and test the economy prior to it being in a massive 3D world. We've talked about, I really love the idea that somebody came up with. I gave somebody the credit the other day, and I guess it wasn't them. I can't remember who came up with this idea, but I love the idea of having an NPC in your shops. So let's say you're not there. It's nice to see someone behind the counter. And what if you could control that NPC via a mobile app, and play with stuff in your store, like maybe craft a few more things, maybe change some things that are like the wares that you have for sale. There's something kind of interesting about that too. So we really like the idea of it, but we're so focused right now on building the core of the game that I wouldn't want to confuse our roadmap right now with it. But maybe towards the end of the year we'll have better plans, better thoughts about it. How big will the world be? This came up a lot. We are targeting zones, and a zone. We talk about this Mirandus discussion a lot, guys. Zones we think are going to be 500 meters by 500 meters, maybe up to 1,000 meters by 1,000 meters. It's really about how does it feel with the total number of things in the world? What can the tech support? Does it feel too sparse when you're walking around? Is it too packed in tight? So we look at what the tech can handle, what your systems can broadly display, and then kind of tune a zone size around that. Now, those are the zones themselves. Those zones we can have, I'm not going to say infinite, but there's no limit to the number of zones that we could extend to over time. Am I wrong on that, Jace?
As many zones as we feel makes the game better, right? We can always stand up more servers and go horizontal as far as the eye can see. But for every zone that's out there, we got to create new content. For every zone that's out there, we got to sprinkle a little Materium in there. I think there's an upper limit, but I can't go on record saying what it is. Maybe 100,000, tens of hundreds of thousands.
That's pretty beefy.
It's
and I think one of the things that we want to do too, guys, is I feel like zones get forgotten. Like there's a zone, and then over time, it's like you just don't care about the old zones. All you want to do is, So I'm really kind of hot on the idea of having zones change and morph over time, having new things appear in a zone, so that there's kind of reason to go back there now and then. So I don't want a game that just is continually moving you away from an initial zone. I want you to have reasons to come back. I think we can do that. Someone, Juice Pigs is how hard will it be to kill the Minotaur King? Freaking super hard. super duper hard. We've talked about that a lot. I'm not going to say impossible because everything in the game can be killed. But I think when you start getting to like ancient classes of monsters, they're a massive puzzle in and of themselves to figure out what to do, how to do it. So I mean, I'm hoping that the world will know when the Minotaur King is killed, and it would be my preference. And again, guys, like for you to be there and have a zone be populated, things have to reconstitute. But I like the idea of the ancient class of creatures. Once they're gone, they're gone. And maybe they drop something that is, will never be dropped again. I think that'd be cool. Someone was asking about ranching and livestock being NFTs. And I touched on this on horses, guys, but let me just go a little deeper on that. If livestock and horses never die, then what happens is we have to have shockingly few of them so that the population doesn't just fill up the world. If they die, there can be a bit of a circulation to it. It's easier to build in things like breeding where you're creating more of them. So I don't know. We'll really have to dig in there, and I'll have to talk to you guys. I really love to get in there and talk to you guys in Mirandus discussion and get your feedback on this. But I think that would be the trade-off, right? If we NFT all of the creatures, then there needs to be fewer of them, and I'll have to really tightly control what that looks like. If they can be killed or slaughtered, or there's something that's cycling them through the world, then we can go a little bit more fun and free on breeding because we know there'll be a drain to them out of the world. So it'll be something for us to talk about, I think. How to earn from this game? Yeah, I don't know. Someone asked, how do I earn from this game? I think the only thing I would say about that is that you have to play it. You have to play Mirandus. I really don't like that there's something passive that's just generating something for you that might have value. You got to play the game. If you engage in the game and play it the right way, then there's riches to be found in the world, and those will be valuable to other players, I'm assuming. And whatever you guys do on the secondary market, that's always your business. But you'll be able to earn in-game items by playing and crafting and collecting resources. Some of these are so funny. Will there be a pooping mechanism in Mirandus? No. We are currently not targeting poopy at this time. Will mines be free to mine? Will any mines be free to mine? Yeah, I mean, mines are going to, I don't think we're going to have any dig out the world mechanics necessarily. Mines will be there. One thing I will say about mines is I see them being very, very dangerous. So this game has day and night. And we like the idea that, that it gets tougher at night, that the monsters, like the nighttime more. I think caves, dungeons, and mines, I just see them all being very similar. They're places where monsters like to be. It'll be dark in there. You'll need light. So for you to go deep into a mine, I think you're going to need to bring some friends with you that are kind of watching either end of the hallway while you do your work. I would like to say that when you're taking a pick to a wall, that sound would bring monsters running from all directions. I mean, it's a dangerous, loud thing to do. And we want we want there to be some sort of sound factor in the game that monsters are responding to. So I would have to assume that, taking a pickaxe to a wall is a level 10 sound thing in the game. It kind of bring all the monsters a running. So anyone will be able to go into a mine or, and they'll all be in the same mine together. There's no instances, if you will, but it'll be quite dangerous. It'll be quite dangerous in there. Looking. And let me just actually turn to the Mirandus discussion board too. I mean, there's, you know, some of the guys that are in here a lot with me. Is there a big one that I've missed, guys, that you're dying to know that might be in this massive list of questions? I don't want to miss it. Someone's asking about boats being player driven. We are not going to have boats be driven like you would walk around on a level. That gets really, really messy. Where am I driving my boat? There's 5 boats. Are they on top of each other? When they hit each other, do they do damage? You know, everyone starts, you know, going, you know, banging their boats around. It gets kind of, so we have kind of what we think about as the boats, the bigger boats, those the NFTs that you guys have purchased, and then we're going to have things that we're considering more like mounts, and that's what we're targeting. So if you're out in the seas or in a large body of water, if you have a map and you can take your boat to any place that you know of in existence. Whereas maybe there's a small river that runs through the game, that would be more of the dominion of a mount of some kind, like a canoe. You could get on a canoe and you could pilot that around a lake, a pond, down a secret creek or something. That's kind of what we're thinking there. Okay, hold on. I'm checking Mirandus' discussion.
I love that Mirandus is a game where the boats aren't banging.
Is Gala power going to affect the amount of NFTs you can have or use? I don't think so. Again, we're not, I mean, right now, guys, we're not targeting kind of passive generators. You actively get in the world and run around and do stuff. And that's kind of how you get things of value. How will we discover new sailing locations? Like that to me, I want to imbue those in chests and drops. You know, you find a map to a forgotten place, and interesting to think about a cartographer getting involved there too, which is how are maps created in the world? How can maps be copied? I think if there's a drop of a secret island and it's a rare drop, I like the idea that only a few players might really know that location. And you might want to go down to the docks and ally with a guild that has a big, cool boat that can take you to that location. There's something kind of fun about that. Over time, that location, there'll be more drops of that, or that map will get spread around. But it's neat to think about it being kind of tightly held for a little bit and having exclusive access to a location. Let's see. Ideas to curb item inflation. Punjab's asking. Like, you mean like too many of one type being made? Is that kind of what you're thinking? I mean, there's, the thing about items, guys, is that we're trying to let you control this world. Here's what we control. What we control is like the resources that you can gather, respawn rates, things of that nature. How many of something might be in a loot table? Do you get 3 of it? Do you get 2? But what you guys do with that is kind of up to you. There's no way for us to know exactly. But what I find is that, you guys will very quickly learn what is valuable or not. And if there's, if there's a basic iron sword and those are everywhere, I don't think too many people will be crafting basic iron swords. Mastery for crafting a sword like that will be worth almost nothing. As you get into the higher levels, you'll need to be crafting more fancier things, I would assume. So, you guys will be looking at the supply and demand of the zones where your deeds are, and the players. What do they want? I think that'll determine what you guys are crafting. So I don't see a world where you're crafting an inordinate amount of things that no one wants. I think those resources would be better spent crafting other things that might be more rare. Many people are wondering about the contraption behind Mike Rasnick. I think he means your traps behind you, Mike, but maybe he means is your
looking
little
at this side
sequencer?
or this side?
They
Oh, it
have
is.
to be talking about the synth. They have to be.
About this side?
No, I
This
think
is
it's your little
a
patch bay over
diffuser.
there, your step sequencer.
Yes. This is a modular synthesizer system, which is about probably a 1,000 years modern of Mirandus, or maybe when does Mirandus take place? That would be my question.
It's medieval times ish, 1400s, 1500, is that's kind of the time period. Although there is a
Got it.
massive secret rich backstory, which I will not share at this time, but that's kind of it's a classic medieval fantasy, 1500. And then we kind of steal a little bit from either side.
Medieval times is back when they used to carve the NFTs on wooden panels, right? You would trade them.
But yeah, Mike's got a cool synth, guys. There's actually quite a few
lots of
people on the team that
synthesizer.
make music and do stuff.
Yeah, look up Eurorack, like Europe, EURO, Eurorack modular synthesizers, and my fellow sound designer Roy here built a couple of these modules, so I'm
I
grateful
mean,
to him.
I'll unscrew one and bring it up close if you want to see.
Can we get Roy on camera here?
You made a cam on Roy?
Does he have one? I can't see him.
have one.
Yeah, Roy has a camera, buddy. Come on, man.
Roy on 6.
All right.
Hello, it's me.
Oh,
Hi,
Roy.
I wonder if it's going to blur it, but this is essentially what it does. These are just little pieces that make sound. This is one tiny piece. If you look behind Mike, you can see there's like a bajillion tiny
Okay.
pieces.
Let's go up close here.
Yeah, you can get up close up.
You
I
can
have
really
one
do
on my
this.
wall there. Yeah, see, it's a bajillion itty bitty tiny pieces, and each one of those affects sound or does some sort of control signal in a different way. This one kind of uses gates and triggers to shape sound. This is actually one of my own designs here. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
This is
All
actually
right.
the 2600. They made the R2D2 sounds out of this instrument right here. And this is the famous Oberheim SEM, and yes, there's sequencers in here and oscillators and filters and all kinds
right.
of it's exciting stuff, but a whole nother
Back to
world.
business. Someone
Yes.
had a really good question. Anyway, synthesizers. If you guys want to nerd out on synthesizers, we are always down because we love our gear. This was a really good question that came up, guys, and I want to hit you with it. Someone was asking, what stays with your exemplar? So your exemplar is like, leveling up or whatever that looks like. So let's say you were to trade your exemplar, or sell your exemplar to somebody else. Here's how we're thinking of this right now. And this is really tricky, guys. I'm gonna bring up this chart here just for my reference to make sure I get this right. But there are things that we store in the database about your exemplar, and there are things that are NFTs that you own. And this is really tricky. Your exemplar is going to have a unique blockchain ID. We use that ID when you log in as a bit of a key that links to other data and information. For instance, like you log in and maybe your hit points are low. Well, we have that information on the database that is not stored in the NFT that is your exemplar. So there are some things that you own as an NFT, and there are some things that are stored in our database. And the key to getting through that information is the unique ID of your exemplar. So if you are to trade your exemplar to somebody else, it's really, really tricky. And I want to start with, let's say you have a sword. So in your wallet on Gala, you have a sword. We need that sword to be on your exemplar so that your exemplar can walk around with it and attack and kill stuff. Your other exemplars cannot use that same sword because it's in the hand of this other guy. So what we're trying to say, I think what we want to say, guys, is that trading your exemplar means your exemplar, its core conditions, his health, his energy, the state of his food and sleep are stored on that exemplar. And probably most important is the mastery. So you are working to level up the mastery of your particular exemplar, leveling up, an expert swordsman, an expert archer, an electric, an energy spellcaster of some kind. That stays with your exemplar no matter where you trade it or move it to. This is kind of the current concept. But your gear and your skills, those individual NFTs that might be in your inventory, or you're going to, those actions that you use, those we're keeping separate because it's just shockingly tricky because you own these objects in your wallet. If you were to trade your exemplar to somebody, that's a clean transaction. But it's very tricky to say, I'm going to trade you my exemplar. Then we have to look in the database to see all of the NFTs and skills you have and all of the NFT gear you have that the database is remembering as on this exemplar, and then push all of that in one transaction. So it's a lot easier for us, and I hope this is okay for you guys, if we say your exemplar is getting better because mastery is getting better. That's why a high power exemplar is better than a lower power of the same type. But if you want to also give people the gear and the skills, those would be separate transactions. That's kind of how we're thinking of that. Does that make sense and kind of answer that question? Yeah, and do you want to reset your exemplar at any time? Phew. That's a scary one. Will monsters appear in the same spot or in an area? How will you stop monster camping? So I think one of the things that we're targeting with monsters is that they have really, really far wander distances, far more than you see in most games. So the idea is to, capture adventure. Playing Miranda should feel like an adventure. It's dangerous. It's, part of that danger is not knowing where things are all of the time. So I would say it's going to be difficult for you to camp a monster spot because in Mirandus, they don't just stand there around a fire and you stare at them and then you kill them and wait for them to respawn in 120 seconds and then just camp that all day. They're going to move around. And we've even talked about their spawn locations changing based on where players are. That's trickier to get to, but it's kind of cool if you're not seeing them reconstitute in the world. Or if we can kind of see where, do you think that's possible, Jace? I think we've mentioned that before. I don't know how tricky that would be to do, but
Yeah, there's ways to do it. I mean, the easy way is if there's a player too close, then you just don't spawn. I mean, and honestly, if you've got so many players covering an entire zone, you wouldn't expect a monster to show up there, right? I mean, if they were real, they wouldn't go there because it would be dangerous. So I think we can fictionally say that it makes sense for them not to spawn right next to a player. That feels really kind of goofy and gamey anyway. I'd rather not do it.
What I like about Monsters Respawning, guys, just a design and narrative and fiction note, is that, and the reason you'll hear me say reconstitute a lot, it's because the same way that you come back when you die is the same way the monsters come back. It's the same thing. Like, the fact that you can die and come back is because of Materium, and they too can come back because the land of Mirandus is kind of imbued with that magical power. So I think that's kind of cool.
I have a question for you, Mike, on that. Does that mean that we will have enemy exemplars?
An enemy exemplar.
Or does that distinction even matter?
I mean, I think you would just view it as an enemy.
Right.
Like, you know, someone's asking about gender. Will exemplar gender be random? I think what we're saying is that you should be able to, you know, when we say gender in Mirandus, it's kind of like we have to develop a number of like physical archetypes, and one will kind of be a typical male, one will be a typical female, if you will, a heroic looking fantasy character. But we feel like you guys should be able to change that at any time. And the same thing goes for skin color and hair color. You guys should be able to kind of form them in the way that you like or identify with. So that will not be built into the exemplar itself. That'll be your choice. Will there be companions in the game? So we definitely want familiars, if you will, in the game. We've already kind of committed to a dragon familiar. You know, a little person that, you know, little thing that can kind of follow you around. So we really love that idea. I think what we're trying to do is say that they're not just cosmetic. It's real easy to say, oh, you have a hawk following you around. It's a lot more difficult to give them function within the game, but at the very least, they'll kind of give you a buff that is not too difficult to do. But we want them to go deeper than that. I would rather have far, far, far fewer in the world, but that they can do a thing, than having many of them that are just kind of cosmetic and follow you around. Because then just everyone in the world has a cat, a dog, and then you walk into, you know, everyone has one. So, you know, think of it like falconeering, if you will. You know, how many people are rolling into the tavern with a falcon at their wrist? Someone was asking, is it basically to add on after the game is released? That's our plan, guys. There's kind of two ways you can develop an MMO, or any game really. One of them is you develop this unbelievably massive thing, and you guys wait for, you know, 7 to 10 years for it to come out. Like, that sucks. So we're trying to build a very small part of the game, get it to you guys as fast as we can, and then over time, just expand that and expand that and expand that world. So.
I mean, while we say it's a small part of the game, but the discussion that you guys have been hearing the whole day is it's a very involved process. We're trying to not only make a good game the right way, which is a lot of work and a lot more extra work than just putting something out there. And on top of that, we're trying to put it on blockchain, all that other stuff. And you hear all the challenges that we have, even doing simple stuff. So even when we say it's a small part of the game, just understand that, you know, in order to pull this off, we need dedicated, awesome nerds, and we actually have that. And now we just need time.
We've got all the nerds.
Oh, you saw what Mike was packing. You saw what Roy was making. I mean,
okay. Here's two great questions.
This is a badass group of people, by the way, who are making this game. I want to say in my first month here, I've been really impressed with how brilliant everybody is and the creative ideas and the excitement and the leadership. And it's really an exciting place to be on a daily basis. So I think you guys are going to be in good hands here.
Oh, that's nice to hear, Mike.
Galaxy brains. Galaxy
Someone's
brains.
asking, This is a good distinction, guys. Someone, Daneth, was asking, hey, is there a playtest at Galaverse or during Galaverse? Definitely, we're targeting during Galaverse, guys. It would be way too unfair to let only people at Galaverse play. Everyone all over the world who has an exemplar will be able to play for sure. So it'll be available to everyone.
Well, we need metrics from people who have ping times outside of the building too.
Yeah. So someone asked, is Mirandus going to have gore? Yeah, I'm real hot on blood and guts. I mean, I just think it's part of the visceral experience of chopping something. So yeah, I like jibs. This is a really interesting one, guys. This is a beefy discussion here. Captain of the Cool Apes is thinking about how experience will be shared in Mirandus. Also, I mean, think about like loot. Like I kill a monster, who gets to loot it? How does all of that work? And been thinking about it, and we've got some kind of interesting ways to do this. It's NFTs, guys, right? So you might be looting an NFT. Some ways you can do it. I mean, you've played other games, it's like you can say that there's a random roll that happens, and whoever wins the roll is the person that gets to loot. But we were kind of kicking around an idea, and I mean, I got a lot of you guys in here in the Mirandus discussion chat. I'd love to hear what you think about this. I kind of like the idea that creatures would have a loot table, and everyone who was involved in that combat, or maybe a number of people involved in that combat, get to go up there and tap on that creature and roll that loot table. So if 10 of you are taking down an epic level beast, what if all 10 of you got a roll in that loot table? Now, if it was a very low level beast, we probably couldn't have, depending on the creature, we could only have a certain number of rolls, and that might be kind of first come, first serve, which would be a little dangerous. But I like the idea that everyone gets a chance to tap on it and maybe get a roll, which I think is kind of fun. I don't know. In Mirandus discussion, what do you guys think about that? I mean, loot tables for sure, but think about like, 3 of us kill a monster, all 3 of us get to roll on that loot table and see if we get something super cool, which I think is kind of fun. And that's, so Fleef is asking the question, right? What if one person barely did anything? That is always tricky. Who was involved in the combat? What does that look like? Hey, what if I'm a healer? I didn't attack them for anything. Like it is a very difficult piece of logic to determine who was involved in the combat and who wasn't. I think what we would probably say is, there would be a percentage of hit points that you needed to take down to be considered involved in that combat and get one of the rolls. If somebody was injured by that creature and you healed them for a certain number of hit points, you also could be considered a part of that. But you see how tricky that is to get right. But that's kind of what we will have to build that, I think, no matter what.
It gets even more complicated when, say, you've got 4 or 5 monsters around and you're in a big skirmish and you got 5 or 6 players. And I mean, do you deserve a loot roll on all of the monsters or just some of them? Or, I mean,
Yeah.
It gets really tricky because you throwing down an area of effect heal, you're helping all of them maybe, but it's just really difficult to figure out. Like, there's no good algorithm for it.
Yeah,
It's
did you
very
earn your
also-
roll? Did you earn your loot or not? Is always a tricky one. So, but that'll be something that we'll build, guys, and try to make sure it's good, and we'll need you in there to play it and make sure it's feeling right, because that's a tricky one.
We reserve the right to change it.
All right, I'm going back to the questionnaire, and hit me with a question in here, guys. We probably should wrap this up here pretty quick. We are getting to the 2-hour mark. Yeah, observers saying like party agreements. That's another kind of way to do it. Yeah, we can't do just first come, first serve, Nero. You know, that just never quite seems to work. And I mean, there's this part of me that loves that a halfling is hiding in the shadows and runs up and grabs the loot when the monster gets killed and runs away. But I feel like you can only do that in a game where there's PvP, where everyone can be like and jump on that guy and get him. But when you can't kill the other player, you got to do something else, right?
And if we have like an algorithm for it, people will figure out the algorithm and they'll just be building to get the best loot and not actually playing the game. So it is challenging.
Yeah. Let's see. There's some other little basic questions here in the questionnaire, guys. Like, do I need to be online when players buy goods? No. We like the idea that you're putting your wares up in your building for sale and people can come and buy them whether you're online or not. You know, getting a lot of questions in here actually about how Gala power might affect gameplay. I think I'll have to dig into that a little bit more with you guys. If you guys think that's really important, you know, we could probably come up with some sort of bonus or something like that for having a very high Gala power, but I haven't really thought that through. There's some Vox questions. I don't. One of them's asking, will the rarity of the Vox affect the charm's advantages or disadvantages? Or I mean, advantages for the matching exemplar. I don't see it that way. I see it more like I think it's just going to be a buff to the exemplar power, and I don't know how the rarity of the Vox. I mean, maybe that should affect it. That'd be something to think about. I'd have to see exactly what those final numbers were and how they're aligning with some of the exemplar types, but I'll look at that. I'll think about that. I think I've been asked that a few times by people, so I'll try to dig into that and see. Someone's asking, is Mirandus VR still a thing? You know, this will maybe be the last question of the night, guys, and then I'll be back online tomorrow to discuss stuff. But the whole team thinks VR is just super fucking cool. I mean, it's like when you put the glasses on and it's just awesome, and it is just an entirely different experience. So we all love it. We're just not convinced that the technology is really there to commit all of the development resources to making it a VR kind of exclusive game. That probably wouldn't work. It's just not all the way there yet, guys. It is kind of how we feel. You have to have a really high frame rate or else it makes you sick. How long can you wear something on your head? The control systems are really tricky. How do I, just manage and control things from an action standpoint? So we really like it. I like that we're first person because I feel like we're leaving that door open. And so, I would say it's something that we want to think about for the future. We've had some ideas in the team, which I thought were really cool, of making like a VR tavern, like just having some kind of separate maps or places that you can go to and interact in a VR world. That way we don't have to make a whole game about it. But yeah. Medine, yes, there will be a rental system in Mirandus. We got to really think through that and see how that's going to work. But we know that it's important for you guys to be able to like rent out your exemplars to others. Mirandus VR confirmed. I love it. Yeah, we love it, guys. It's just really hard to make work. It's so hard to make work, and I think in a couple years, let's see where the technology's at and see what we can do. But it's just not like super there yet. I feel like.
Well, with all the 3060s that are crying over our last build, it's kind of hard to imagine VR being able to pull off the render.
You got to render it twice. Like everything's got to be rendered twice, you know. That hurts. But a VR tavern, you know, like that seems very possible. That seems very possible. All right, guys. Well, I hope this was cool for everybody, and it was cool to meet more people, the team, and hope there was some that was fun for everybody. Next, you know, we're gonna try to do this, you know, every quarter, guys, and sometimes,
Yep.
you know, there'll be a build that you guys can play. Generally, that's our goal, but we had so much foundational stuff that we wanted to dig into this quarter. We couldn't get that build out to you, but in Q2, there will be a build and an additional Materium grant if you can help us test it. So, is there anything else? Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Everybody wave.